They told her she was too small to carry a rifle that size. Too small for the pack, too small for the cold, too small for the kind of work we did out there in places that don't show up on the news. The first time I saw her, I'll be honest with you, I thought the same thing. We all did. Nobody said it out loud. We didn't have to. You could read it on every face in that briefing tent. I've been carrying this story for a long time now. I've told pieces of it to maybe 3 people, but I think about her almost every day, and I figure some stories deserve to be heard whole. So sit with me a minute. Let me tell you about the smallest soldier I ever served beside, and the night she made every one of us feel about 2 inches tall. Her name was Adeline Cross. Everybody called her Addie. She stood maybe 5'2" on a good day, in boots, with her chin up. She couldn't have weighed more than 110 pounds soaking wet, and I mean that almost literally, because the first day I met her it was raining sideways and she still showed up early and waited in it. That's the thing I noticed before anything else. She waited in the rain, didn't duck under the tarp, didn't complain, just stood there with water running off the brim of her cover, eyes forward like she'd already decided that whatever was coming, she wasn't going to be the one who flinched. We were a SEAL element, 6 of us tight, the kind of tight where you can tell who's about to make a joke before they open their mouth. We'd been working the same stretch of mountains for weeks, high country, the kind of place where the air is so thin your lungs feel like they're filing a complaint, and the cold gets into the seams of your gear and just lives there. We needed a long gun, somebody steady, somebody who could hold a position for hours, without moving and put a round exactly where it needed to go from a distance that most people couldn't even see. What they sent us was Addie. I remember our team leader, a guy we called Bishop, reading the assignment sheet and then looking up at her and back at the sheet and back at her. He wasn't being mean. Bishop was never mean. He was just doing the math out loud in his head, the way we all were. The rifle she'd be carrying was almost as long as she was tall. The pack we'd need her to move with weighed more than half of what she did. "You're the shooter," he said. It wasn't really a question. It was more like he was hopping the paper was wrong. "I'm the shooter," she said back. And that was it. That was the whole conversation. She didn't try to convince us. She didn't list her scores or her schools or whatever she'd done to get there. I think now that she'd had this same moment 100 times before in 100 different tents, and she'd learned that talking didn't change anybody's mind. So she just stopped trying. She let the work do the talking. She just hadn't gotten the chance to talk yet. The guys gave her a wide berth those first couple days. Not hostile, just careful the way you are around something you don't understand. There was a lot of quiet looking. A couple of the younger guys made jokes when she wasn't around. Somebody asked if we should get her a booster seat for the truck, and a few people laughed, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't smile. I'm not proud of that. I'm telling you the truth because the truth is the whole point of this. But here's what I noticed in those first days, the stuff the jokes missed. She was the first one up. Every morning before the cooks, before the sun did anything but turn the sky a sick gray, she was up and she was cleaning that rifle, slow, methodical, like it was a living thing and she was checking it for a fever. She'd run a cloth down the barrel and hold it up to what little light there was and just study it. She talked to it sometimes, low, under her breath. I couldn't hear what she said. I didn't ask. She ate alone, but not in a sad way. More like she was somewhere else in her head, running numbers. I caught her once with a little notebook, soft and swollen from being out in the weather, and she was writing down things, wind, I think, distances, the way the light moved off the ridgeline at different hours. She filled pages with it. Most of us trusted our scopes and our gut. She trusted math she did with a pencil in the dark. And she could carry that pack. That's the thing that started turning the guys around, slow, one at a time. The third day out, we did a movement up a slope that had a few of us breathing hard, and there was Addie at the back, small as a kid in all that gear, just grinding up it one step at a time. Never stopped. Never asked anybody to take weight off her. When we crested the top, one of the big guys, Tully, 6'4", arms like bridge cables, he stuck his hand out to help her up the last rock. She looked at it. Then she put her own hand on the rock and pulled herself up next to him. Didn't say a word. Tully just kind of laughed, a real one this time, and after that he didn't make any more jokes. Respect out there isn't a thing you give. It's a thing you stop being able to withhold. But trust is different, trust is bigger, and we still didn't trust her. Not yet. Not with the thing that matters, which is your life, which is the lives of the men next to you. You can respect somebody's grit and still not want them holding the rifle that's supposed to be the difference between you walking home or not. We'd never seen her shoot under pressure. Anybody can punch paper. Anybody can be steady when nobody's shooting back. What we needed to know was what happened to her when it got loud and ugly and everything went wrong at once, and we just didn't know. I think Addie knew we didn't trust her. I think she felt it the way you feel cold all the time in the background of everything. And she carried that too. She carried that on top of the pack. There was one night, before any of it happened, where I caught her sitting apart from the fire we weren't supposed to have but had anyway, small and shielded, just enough to thaw our hands. She was looking up at the stars, and there were a lot of them out there, more than you ever see at home. The sky in those mountains was so crowded with stars it almost looked fake. I sat down near her, not too near. I had this idea I should say something kind, but I'm not good at that, and what came out was, "You always been a shooter." She didn't look at me, just kept looking up. "My granddad taught me," she said. "We lived out past where the road stopped. He used to say I had quiet hands." She held one up and looked at it like it belonged to someone else. Everybody focuses on the trigger. The trigger's the easy part. The whole thing is everything that happens before the trigger, the breathing, the waiting, the not moving when every part of you wants to move. She finally looked over at me. I'm good at waiting, always have been. People think small means weak. Small means I can hold still longer than a big man can. Small means the wind has less of me to push around. I didn't have anything smart to say back. So I just nodded, and we sat there, and after a while I went to bed. I keep thinking about that. The wind has less of me to push around. She'd taken the thing everybody used against her and turned it into the reason she was the best one there. She'd just been waiting all that time for the rest of us to figure it out. We were going to figure it out, the hard way. Because 2 days after that, the radio crackled to life with the kind of voice you never want to hear, clipped, fast, the words running into each other. Another element, a smaller team than ours, working a valley about 4 clicks east of us. They'd walked into something heavy. They were pinned, they had wounded, and the high ground around them had filled up with people who very much wanted them dead. They couldn't move, couldn't get to a place a bird could pull them out from. Every minute they stayed, it got worse. We were the closest. We were it. 6 of us, plus the smallest soldier I ever served beside, moving fast through terrain that did not want to be moved through fast, toward a fight that everything in my gut told me we were already too late for. Bishop ran point. I was behind him, and right at the back, keeping up, never falling off, was Addie, with that rifle almost as long as she was tall, breathing easy while the rest of us sucked wind, looking at the ridges as we passed them the way the rest of us look at street signs, reading them, already doing the math. None of us knew it yet, but the next 2 hours were going to break every idea we had about who was strong and who was small. And the men whose lives got handed back to them that night, including mine, were going to spend the rest of those lives unable to find the words. Let me tell you what happened in that valley. We heard the valley before we saw it. That's a thing about a real fight that movies never get right. The sound. It doesn't come at you clean, one shot at a time. It comes as a wall. A crackle and a thud and an echo all stacked on top of each other until the whole world is just noise, and the mountains throw it back at you so you can't even tell where it's coming from. We crouched at the lip of the high ground and looked down, and my stomach dropped. The pinned team was below us and to the right, maybe 400 meters out, tucked into a dry creek bed behind a low spine of rock. It was the only cover for 100 meters in any direction, and it wasn't enough. I could see 2 of them dragging a third. The third one wasn't moving on his own. That tells you everything you need to know. and the slopes above them were alive. I counted positions the way you count when your hands are shaking too fast, losing the number, starting over. There were shooters dug into the rocks on the far ridge, plunging fire straight down into the creek bed. There were more of them working around the flanks, trying to close the box. The team below couldn't lift their heads. Every time one of them so much as shifted, the rock around them came apart in little gray puffs. They were minutes from being overrun. Maybe less. Bishop was already talking, fast and low, sorting it out. We could put fire on the near slope, sure. But the position that was killing them, the one doing the real damage, was on the far ridge, dug in deep, partly behind rock, and it was a long way off. Too far for our weapons to reach with any kind of certainty. I remember the distance he called out, and I remember the little drop in his voice when he said it, because the number was bad. It was the kind of distance where a regular rifle is a prayer, not a plan. And the worst of it sat at an angle that meant the shooter down there had cover from almost every direction. Almost. "There's an angle," Addie said. We all turned. I'd half forgotten she was there. She was already off her feet, flat on her belly, working her way to a fold in the ground a little to our left. She'd seen it before any of us, a notch in the terrain that opened a thin lane straight across the valley to that far position. A lane maybe a meter wide. From there she'd be exposed to the near slope. Anybody on that nearer ridge who looked her way would have a clear shot at her, small as she was, lying out in the open while she worked. Bishop looked at the lane, then at her. I watched it happen on his face, the last of the doubt and the thing that had to replace it, because there wasn't time for doubt anymore. There wasn't a second guy. There wasn't a bigger guy. There was a tiny woman with quiet hands and a rifle as long as she was, and there was a team dying 400 meters away, and that was the whole math now. "Can you make it?" he said. She was already settling the bipod into the dirt. "Cover the near slope. Keep their heads down. Don't let them see me set up." She pulled the bolt, eased around home, and put her cheek to the stock like she was lying down next to someone she loved. "Then give me quiet." That's what she asked for. Not luck, not prayers, quiet. So we gave her a war to buy her some. The 5 of us opened up on the near slope all at once, everything we had, just hammering those rocks to make any man behind them duck and stay ducked. The noise was enormous. I was screaming and I couldn't hear myself. Tully was beside me working through ammunition like the world was ending, which, for the men down in that creek bed, it nearly was. And in the middle of all of it, in the eye of that storm, there was Addie. Still. Completely still. I keep coming back to that. We were thunder and she was the silence inside it. She didn't rush. That's the part that still doesn't make sense to me, even now. With rounds chewing the dirt close enough that she had to be feeling the grit on her face, she went through her process like she had all the time in the world. I saw her lips move. Counting, maybe. Reading the wind off something I couldn't see, a bend of grass, a smear of dust, that little notebook's worth of math running behind her eyes. Her finger wasn't even on the trigger yet. She was waiting. She was doing the thing she told me she was best at. She was holding still while every part of her had every reason to move. The first shot I almost missed in the noise, just a different note in the chaos, a flatter, harder crack. Across the valley, on the far ridge, the position that had been killing that team went quiet. Just like that. The puffs of rock around the creek bed stopped coming from that angle. One. She worked the bolt, slow, smooth. I have seen men fumble a reload with their hands shaking after a fight, and here she was running that action like she was setting a table. She found something else through that scope, waited, that same stillness. Then the flat crack again. And a second gun on the far ridge went silent. 2. By now they knew. The men on the far ridge had figured out that something on our high ground was reaching across the whole valley and plucking them off one at a time, and they started looking for it. And the men on the near slope, the ones we were trying to keep pinned, some of them found her. I saw it happen. I saw a position swing toward that little notch where she lay exposed, and I screamed something and dumped everything I had at it. And I don't know if I hit anything, but I made it duck, and that was the job. That was all I could do. Make them duck. Buy her quiet. trust the smallest soldier I ever served beside to do the part none of the rest of us could. A round struck the dirt right in front of her face. I saw it. A geyser of grit went up and washed over her, and for half a second I was absolutely sure, that we just watched her die. She didn't move. She wiped her eyes with the back of one hand, one slow swipe, like a person clearing sleep, put her cheek back down and fired again. 3. I have run that moment back so many times, the dirt in her teeth, the shot landing close enough to part her hair, and her answer to it being one wipe of the eyes and another round down range, exactly where it needed to go. I have known a lot of brave men. Brave is common out there. You'd be surprised, but that wasn't bravery the way I'd understood it. Bravery is doing the thing while you're afraid. This was something past that. This was a person who had decided all the way down that the men in that creek bed were going to live, and had simply removed herself from the equation. There was no Addie out there in that notch. There was just the math and the rifle and the work. Down in the creek bed, something shifted. The team that hadn't been able to lift their heads for I don't know how long, they felt it. They felt the fire slacken off the far ridge, and one of them risked a look, and then suddenly they were moving, dragging their wounded man toward a fold in the ground that could actually shield them. The box that had been closing around them stopped closing. The momentum of the whole thing, that horrible downhill slide toward the worst possible end, just stopped. And then it started rolling the other way. 4, a 5th. I lost count. I genuinely lost count. Every time the enemy fire found a rhythm, found the angle to finish that team off, that flat, hard crack would come from the notch beside us and the rhythm would break. She wasn't just killing the enemy. She was killing their plan. She was reaching into a fight that was already lost and quietly, patiently, taking it apart shot by shot. And the strangest thing started happening among the 5 of us in the middle of all that noise and terror. We stopped being scared for her. We started being something closer to awe. Tully looked over at me at one point between mag changes, and he wasn't laughing this time, and he wasn't doing the booster seat joke. He just yelled 4 words at me that I'll never forget. He yelled, "Where did she come from?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't, really. She came from past where the road stopped. She came from a granddad who told her she had quiet hands. She came from 100 tents where men did the math out loud and decided she was too small, and she'd carried that doubt all that way up every slope through every cold night, holding it on top of the pack, and now, out here with the dirt still on her face, she was setting it down. All of it. One shot at a time. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because as that team below us finally started to break free and move toward a spot a helicopter could reach, the enemy did the thing that desperate, losing men do. They committed everything to one last push. A group of them broke from cover on the near slope and rushed straight at the creek bed, trying to close the distance before the team could get clear, trying to turn it back into the kind of fight where numbers win. And right then, in the worst possible moment, I heard a sound from the notch beside us that turned my blood to ice. Addie's rifle ran dry. The bolt locked back, empty, and the men rushing that creek bed were almost on top of the team that thought, for the first time in an hour, that they were going to live. The bolt locked back, empty. I want you to understand how fast all of this happened, because when I tell it slow like this, it sounds like there was time to think. There wasn't. The men rushing that creek bed were going to reach the team in seconds. Addie's rifle was dry, and in that gap, that tiny sliver of nothing between the last shot and the next, the whole thing hung in the air. Every life down there, hers, ours, all of it balanced on a knife. Most people freeze, I've seen it. I've felt it myself, that half second where your brain just buffers and goes white. It's human. There's no shame in it. Addie didn't freeze. Her hands were already moving. I'd watched her reload a dozen times in the last however long, slow and smooth, like setting a table. This wasn't that. This was the same motion run at 3 times the speed and somehow without losing a single piece of it. Magazine out. New one in. Bolt forward, cheek down. The whole sequence took less time than it's taking me to say it, and the thing about it, the thing I keep telling people who don't believe me, is that it wasn't panicked. It was fast, but it was clean. She'd practiced this exact moment 10,000 times alone in the dark so that when it finally came for real, her hands could do it without her. Quiet hands, even now. She found the lead man through the scope. She fired, and then she did the hardest thing I have ever watched a human being do under pressure. She didn't spray. She didn't panic dump rounds into the crowd and hope. She took them one at a time. The same flat, patient crack over and over, each one its own little island of stillness in all that noise. The rush broke against her like a wave hitting a rock. The men who'd been so sure they could close that last 100 meters found that every time one of them got ahead, got brave, got close, he simply stopped. And the rest of them did the thing you do when you realize the open ground in front of you is killing you. They went to ground. They stopped coming. And that was it. That was the moment it turned for good. Because once they stopped coming, the team in the creek bed got their feet under them, all the way, and they moved. We poured fire down on the near slope to cover them, and they ran, dragging their wounded man, 3 of them on him now, stumbling and bleeding and alive, across the open to the fold in the ground where the bird could reach. I heard the rotors before I saw it. That sound. After all that noise, the sound of those rotors coming up the valley was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard in my life. The helicopter came in hard and low and angry, and the door gunner added his voice to ours. And under all that cover, the team got their man aboard and themselves aboard. And the bird lifted off and banked away over the ridge and was gone. They made it, all of them. The wounded man lived. I found that out later, and I want you to know it now because I know how these stories sometimes go, and this one doesn't go that way. He lived. He's got kids. He coaches a soccer team somewhere. He has no idea that the reason he gets to do that is a woman he never met, lying in the dirt 400 meters away, who everybody said was too small. We pulled off that ridge ourselves not long after, fighting and falling back in stages the way you do, and we made it to where another bird could grab us, and then we were up and out and the valley was below us, going small and gray and quiet, and I remember pressing my head back against the airframe and just shaking. Not from fear, from the size of what I just watched. Nobody spoke on that flight. 6 SEALs, hard men. The kind of men who fill silence with noise on instinct, who joke at funerals, who have a comeback for everything. And not one of us said a single word the whole way back. We just kept looking at her. She was sitting at the end of the bench, that long rifle finally at rest across her knees, and she was cleaning it. Of course she was. Running a cloth down the barrel in the shaking dark of that helicopter, slow and methodical, checking it for a fever, the same as the first morning I ever saw her. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just reached into a lost fight and pulled 7 men back from the edge of the world with quiet hands and a pencil's worth of math. There was still dirt on her face, from the round that almost killed her. She hadn't bothered to wipe it off. When we got back, the story got there before we did. It always does. By the time we walked into camp, men we'd never met were standing up. I don't fully know how to describe what happened next without it sounding made up, but I'll try, because it's the part that matters most. Tully, 6'4", arms like bridge cables, the guy who'd offered her a hand up the rock that first week and gotten ignored. Tully walked straight across that camp, and he stopped in front of her, and this enormous man came to attention. Just snapped to it, sharp as glass, in front of a woman who didn't reach his collarbone. And then the next guy did it. And then all of us did it. And then men who hadn't even been there, who only knew what they'd heard, they stood up too. And the whole place just went quiet and still in a way I'd never seen before and have never seen since. She looked at us. And for the first time since I'd met her, Addie didn't know what to do with her hands. She'd had an answer for every doubt. She'd had stillness for every shot. She'd had that flat patience for the worst moments a person can stand inside of. But she had nothing for this. She looked at all those men standing at attention for her, and her chin started to go, just a little, the way it does right before, and she caught it. She caught it and held it because she was Addie, and then she said the only thing she said about any of it, the whole rest of the time I knew her. She said, I was just waiting for my shot. That's all. I was just waiting for my shot, like it was nothing. Like she hadn't been waiting for that shot her entire life. Not the one in the valley, but the one where somebody finally looked at her and saw what was actually there instead of how much of it there was. I think about that a lot, about how many people are walking around right now, carrying something extraordinary, getting measured by people who can only count the parts that show. Too small, too quiet, too young, too whatever. And how the measuring goes on right up until the one moment when the small thing turns out to be the only thing that can save you. And then suddenly everybody can see it, and they wonder how they ever missed it. We didn't miss it because she hid it. We missed it because we weren't looking with the right eyes. I served a while longer after that. So did she, somewhere out there doing the work, I imagine, the same patient way. We lost touch the way you do. But I never forgot 1 second of that day, and I never told the story without saying her name, because the whole reason it stuck with the rest of us forever. The reason 6 hard men couldn't find a single word the whole flight home was that we'd spent weeks deciding what she was, and she'd needed about 10 minutes to show us we'd been wrong about every bit of it. So when somebody tells you you're too small for the thing you're built to do, too small, too soft, too late, too anything, I want you to think about a woman lying flat in a notch of dirt with a round parting her hair, doing slow math while the world came apart, refusing to move until the shot was right. The wind has less of her to push around. That's what she told me under all those stars before any of it happened. I didn't understand it then. I do now. She wasn't too small for the rifle. We were just too small to see her.